Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen with Reach Unlimited, and I want to thank everybody for being here, those that are going to be joining us live and those that will be listening to this at another time. I want to welcome my guest, Nina Owen, who is going to be with us today, and she's going to be talking to us about her experience and the book that she had written about a situation that happened with her son. So thank you so much, Nina, for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about who you are and your story?
Okay, sure. Way back. I grew up in West Tennessee. I moved to Atlanta when I got married. I've been here, 27 years in Atlanta area. I had my son, Sam, in 1995. I had a daughter, Maggie, in 2000, and a daughter, Claire, in 2003. And life was busy and good and everything. But what happened with Sam, I mean, he was a very high achieving kid. He was very social. He was, if things weren't perfect, they were wrong to him. And so we first realized he was having some depression issues when he was in high school. It was because of rejection of a girl. And I thought he was taking it in stride. I knew about it. He talked to me about it. But then one night he took a handful of Benadryl, and we didn't know about it until the next day. And I walked by his room, and his room was destroyed. And so we talked to him about it, and we were like, "Is this a suicide attempt?" And he said, "No, he just didn't want to be sober, and he couldn't find anything else." But that was the impetus to put him into therapy. And so Sam was admitted he went to Georgia Tech, was his major in physics. He had aspirations of going to an Ivy League and applied to a few. Was somewhat crushed when that didn't happen, but just every little ding to his psyche was so much more than it should be, I think. So when he was a sophomore at Tech, he attempted suicide. And he came home Labor Day weekend, ended up telling my husband. And so from there, we tried to get him help. It was not easy to find help, I called my pediatrician. Who do you call? And she said, here are some local hospitals. So take him there for an evaluation. So I called one, discounted it, called another. We took him for an evaluation. But because he was over 18, they couldn't keep him. And they didn't share anything with us. So he came out saying he was fine. They wanted him to do outpatient, but he couldn't take that time from school. He was fine. I begged him to stay home. It's detailed in my book. But we had him done for 6 more months after he was hospitalized before he actually killed himself. And so that happened in February 2016, 5 years ago. And it's been wretched, but I feel like I had a story to tell, because when Sam died, I looked for books coming from a parent's perspective, and I couldn't find anything. I really couldn't. And I wanted to know that there's something on the other side of this. So that's when I started writing my book.
Good.
And I didn't start writing until a year after he died. And one reason I did, I was going through his computer, and I found some journals and documents and things that he had written. So 6 of the chapters in the book are written by Sam. And in it, he does a really good job of detailing his depression, and also the drug use that was involved too. So I don't want to keep rambling.
Well, I think the story, as we were talking before this, is really important, because we're facing a time right now where a lot of things are happening in our world, and you have a perspective that can really help people to help their family members, and also to be aware of, what's really going on with somebody in your family that is struggling with depression or thoughts of suicide. Because like we were just talking about, and we'll just start there, about how more people than we probably think have those thoughts at times. And you had a very good answer to that. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I believe, and this is what I want everybody to know, those dark suicidal thoughts do pass. So if you think you're going to kill yourself today, wait a day, wait a week, and those dark feelings will change. I believe that very often suicide is impulsive. I believe with Sam it was impulsive. We found Google Notes on his Google Drive. He researched how to tie a noose the morning of his suicide. So he, I think, that's the big message. Just wait. Suicide is the leading cause of death in this country for people ages 10 to 34.
Which is 10 to 34.
Yeah.
Why? How is that so possible with children so young?
I don't know, but I have heard cases and situations, and it's tragic, because they don't feel like, they feel like what they feel right then is how they're always going to feel, and that's not true. And people come and people go in your lives, and we all experience setbacks and heartbreaks, but I really think the message is, hang on, just wait, and talk to your family members. Sam was pretty open with us once we found out, but I don't know how long he was suffering from depression, and that was his diagnosis, depression. He thought he was bipolar, and I said, Sam, I've never seen you in any sense of a mania at all. You're not bipolar. And the doctors, after he was hospitalized, they decided that he was depressed, and then he had a drug-induced psychosis. So yeah, talk. And another startling statistic is in 2018, there were more than 2.5 times suicidal deaths as there were homicidal deaths.
Wow.
2.5 times, and in my mind, that's needless. It's just a tragic waste.
From your experience, because you have experienced going through that, but also your aftermath and trying to put pieces together and help other people. And your book is totally about helping people to understand and maybe look for signs. What are some of the things that people can look for if they feel like someone in their family is dealing with something like this?
I think definitely isolation, if they are spending a lot of time by themselves. And that's really happening with this pandemic. It's happening a lot. I think also, they may even utter, I just want to kill myself. And people will be like, don't say that. But that's usually pretty serious if you hear somebody say that. It should be really addressed. I think, when if they sleep a lot, if they lose interest in activities that they once enjoyed, and grades, with Sam, the grades weren't assigned, but, I think all those things can indicate. And, there is mental health out there. And that I like to tell people, I'm like, if your son had cancer, you would not keep it quiet. You would tell your friends, ask for advice, try to get the very best help you can. And I think the same should be for depression. You should research and be careful who treats your child or your family member. We definitely had some fits and starts with that when Sam was released from Ridgeview from the hospital, so he stayed there 6 days. We had to find him a local psychiatrist, and I asked maybe one person, got a name. He ends up being there, and she was a disaster. She took him off the meds he was released from the hospital with. she said things, she's like, we normally don't see people this high functioning, which should have been a huge red flag, right? So, and I did find another one, and he said, no, I'm good with that doctor. But that's just my point. I mean, there are good and bad doctors, and there are good and bad therapists. And you can't normally just hit on one the very first time, which is what I tried to do.
And that's important. But one of the things that you were talking about that, and I was feeling into this, I'm sure that there's a big amount of guilt or hardship that we put upon ourselves as parents. And I feel like that's really important to talk about, because just by the few conversations we've had this short period of time, I know that you're a very caring and responsible person. So how do you, or how do people that are going through this have compassion for themselves through this process?
It's hard. It's very hard. The what ifs will kill you because there's no answer there. But after Sam died, he came to me in a dream. And he was floating above me and had a black t-shirt and a plaid shirt over it. Not clothes he owned, but clothes I thought he would wear. And he made this sort of disparaging face that I've seen him make a lot of times. And he said, Mom, I'm sorry. And that was it. I then knew that I could communicate with him. I felt like I could. And so a lot of different things happened. I wear Sam's watch sometimes, and I would get a distinct vibration sometimes, and I knew it was him. But as far as the guilt, I think I let go of it when it was his first birthday after his death. And I was sleeping, and I had this visitation. I felt like I had a visitation in the afterlife. I felt I was there with my son, and my husband was there too. And Sam told us about what he was studying, he was learning, it was a very active place. And I asked him if I could hold him, and he sat down next to me, and I cradled his body. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, I cannot move on to the next tier of the afterlife until you forgive me. Wow. And I was like, Sam, I forgive you. But I didn't, I didn't have that. And the forgiveness and the guilt go hand in hand.
Oh, big.
So after waking up from that, I was fully able to forgive him and give myself a break. That it's really important to, I have two daughters, and I knew I couldn't just wallow in my sorrow for the rest of my life. I had to be a mother to my girls. And so that's what I've tried to remember foremost in my mind, that they deserve a mom.
It's really important talking about this. Forgiveness is one thing, but moving on is another thing. And I think that they're both like two paths that just never cross because they're so diverse in their direction. And it's really important. And you're talking about moving on, because that's the hardest part. I'm watching in the chats how people are really empathizing with your process, and the fact that that's something that is really hard to deal with. How did you, or were you able to step up and move forward? And because I know that self-love and compassion is one thing, and like you said, it was hard to do. And I don't know that we ever truly would be able to, because I've done things where I know that I've forgiven myself, but it's not like I haven't totally forgiven myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you still have to move on.
Yeah. I really credit, I have some wonderful friends and family, and my husband and I grieved very differently. I was very emotive and, just really upset all the time. And he kept his inside. That was his way of grieving. So I couldn't really rely on him to be the ear I needed to grieve. But I have some really, really good friends who would say, hey, Nina, let's go out for a walk. Hey, Nina, come on, we're going to go up here and, have a bite of lunch or something. Or, get me out of the house, and my mind would be swirling everywhere. But it was, I have to credit all of them. And I think, you see the value in friendships when something like this happens, and you learn the quality of friendships, because those who really, really matter are always there for you. So the first year I was just in total grief. I couldn't do much except friends, and sometimes we would go out of town because I just had to get out of town. But about a year after Sam died, I found his papers. I was saying about that. And I had always wanted to be a writer. I have a degree in journalism, but have worked in the hotel industry. So there weren't many jobs for newspaper journalists when I graduated college. But I started it, and I had been journaling. So a friend told me when Sam died, and she had lost her own son, she said, journal, write it down, write down your feelings, what you're saying to him, what you want to say to him. And I did. And I felt like he and I had this ongoing conversation at times, and I felt like I could hear him. I mean, thinking that he's in this place where he's moving on, he's thriving, gave me energy to move forward with my own life and my own spirituality.
And that's really a beautiful thing, because, we were talking in the beginning too about mediumship in general, and not everybody that has loved ones that pass over have that experience. But I think it's not because you can't. I think it's because you just either don't know that you can, or you don't give yourself permission to. But quite often our loved ones will come into our dreams and talk with us, because we're more at peace and not so judgmental. We're more free and easy when we're in our sleep, so they can communicate with us. Yeah. And that's really beautiful and healing. It sounds to me too that part of your journey was healing for you, to have those times where you can see him move on, see that there is newness to his life now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was very confused about life after death before Sam died. I mean, I've been raised a Christian, a Baptist, and had, these beliefs that became vaguer as I aged. And my husband, in 2005, after his dad died, he started studying. He just became very interested in life after death. He started studying Edgar Cayce. And he would come to me and try to tell me these things, or, and I was like, Jeff, that is, it was so out of the mainstream. I was like, I don't want to hear it. This is before Sam died. So he continued to talk about it and study. And when Sam was ill, we got an appointment with a hypnotherapist and Reiki master. And then after Sam died, Jeff said he wanted to contact a medium. And there's this lady who did it over the phone. And I said, you must be out of your mind. I said, do you really think there are people that can communicate with the dead? And he's like, yeah, I did. I was like, leave me out of it. I don't want any part of it. So he had his reading. My daughter took part. And afterwards I asked her, I said, do you believe it was true? And she said, I hoped it was. And so I listened to a couple of these readings. Still a little bit dubious, what did she look up on us, whatever. For some things it might be a little general, but there were other specifics. So I have a good friend, Carol, who's a medium. But before I knew she was a medium, she also lost her son. And we had formed a friendship, a bond with our loss. I was having lunch with her, and I broached the subject of mediumship, and she was always some animated. She's like, absolutely, I believe. She said, I feel like I have a sixth sense. I've always felt that way. And I was like, wow. So it's more receptive to her than my husband.
That's normal. I can understand that.
But so I read this book by Susan Rushing called Suicide on the Other Side. And Susan's a medium. She's works out of the Phoenix and Dragon bookstore in Atlanta. So I had a reading with Susan, and it was unbelievable. So specific about so many things. There was no way she would have known it. I mean, no way. There was a time when she said, she said, Maggie is more savage than Claire. And I said, I don't think Sam would describe Maggie as savage. I came home to my younger daughter and she said, Maggie's cool, hilarious. It's a compliment, savage. And I said, oh, I didn't know that. It was a very eye-opening experience. And then, so I had sessions with Amy Etzman, who's a phenomenal medium. And I just, it gave me so much comfort, for Sam to tell me things and to say things. And I mean, I know he loves me. I know he does. And that I'll be with him again. And that's what so yeah, that's how I got introduced and convinced of mediumship. But it was definitely from not entertaining any thought of it at all to being a big advocate, for sure.
Well, you also, in a roundabout way, brought up something really important, is that not all mediums are created equal. That you have some that, and it's not that some are bad and some are honest, or however you want to word it, in the negative and the positive. It's just that they're at different levels in trust.
Sure.
There's some that are really out there to be not ethical and not grateful. There are some like that, but overall, you just have different levels of, because it's an immense amount of trust to do mediumship, like we were talking about. You have to really be able to allow the communicator to come through you and to give to the sitter. But the beautiful thing is the healing that can have to the person that needs it.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like for you, that was really very, would you say that was kind of one of the pivotal points that would help you on your road to healing? And also
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was utmost in my, absolutely 100%. That was the thing that gave me the most peace, gave me the most courage to move on. And I know, I mean, I've been in an introductory class with Carol for mediumship. And so I've explored my own and, maybe I've gotten some evidence or whatever, but I really admire people that study mediumship and work at it, because it is such a blessing, actually, when you can bring your loved one back. So yeah,
in essence, doing that the whole time, because your son was coming to you and speaking to you in different ways.
Right.
And it's interesting to me, as we were talking before about, you really don't have interest necessarily, at least right now, in being a medium, but yet you have this connection with your son. And if you can have it with your son, then you can have it with any spirit on the other side, because all it is making your awareness to what's on the other side. But you also talked a little bit about how, from your spiritual training, right, of growing up, that you were worried that people wouldn't accept the direction you were going in your thinking after that.
Right. And I think there are definitely still people. My parents, I mean, it's fine. They, other people, they have their religious teachings and the basics. And I mean, I don't know why they think it's so impossible to communicate with your loved one if you believe in a heaven and, but yeah, so I've had some flack. I've had some, people who just don't necessarily want to talk about it. They'll change the subject, and that's okay. My my family, my son and daughter, my husband and daughters are very open to it. And that's really what mattered the most to me.
From your standpoint, that's a really important conversation. From your standpoint, if somebody is talking to you, how do you feel like people should communicate with you in this subject?
In the subject of mediumship, or
no, in the subject of suicide, or in the subject
suicide.
of loss. I mean, it's a really touchy subject, but
it is.
How would you think, or what would you say to people on how to approach subjects like this with parents?
Yeah, I think one word I hate is committed suicide, because committed is always attached to something bad. Mm-hmm. Committed to an asylum, or committed to, murder or whatever. But when dealing with a parent who's lost their child by suicide, they want to talk about their kid. I always wanted to talk about my kid, and even from the very beginning. So it's the elephant in the room, and people will do anything to talk about that. But I want to talk about Sam, and so that would be my advice to people: is don't tiptoe around it. I mean, this is their child, and that's what keeps them alive. And you're by talking, continuing.
Absolutely. What do you think keeps people from actually having those conversations, from your experience and how you've experienced it? What do you think is the number one thing that keeps people from really asking you about it or sharing with you about it?
I don't know. I think sometimes it's their own fear for their own children. I mean, before Sam died, I had never, ever entertained any thought of one of my children dying. I just knew that was the thing that would kill me. So it's scary. And, we're a family that we didn't think it would happen to. We have always loved our children and respected them, and they've respected us. And so I think when people do broach the subject or don't broach the subject, it's a little bit about their fear. And I have had other people, they'll say, like, oh, Sam did drugs. Okay, my kid didn't do drugs. Okay, so, your kid's safe or whatever, or just try to find points of difference so that their child is not likely to have, whatever. But it all comes in different phases. And Sam's drug use was recreational mostly. He did marijuana and LSD. And we tried, when he was in high school, we definitely tried to get him to stop him from smoking at home. And so what I didn't know back then is that the THC in marijuana is so much stronger than it was back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, it's like much stronger. So it's not, I mean, I don't know if it's a gateway, but there, there's a lot of drug use out there. And even if you have a smart kid like Sam, and they're swimming on the swim team, and they're doing half-time, job, and they're applying for it, there's a good chance that they're exploring with drugs, because, and I don't know if that, if that was part of Sam's suicide traction. I think it probably affected the psych meds he was on. But yeah, I think that a lot of times that's what that people are afraid to. For me to say, my son was just a normal boy. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the word normal boy, I think that they all are normal, but they all have, I raised two kids, and I know that they were both polar opposites to each other.
Right.
And yet they both would get themselves into mischief, and because that's what you do as you grow up, and not to have any judgments to that, but to be heightenedly aware of whatever you need to help them. I think, a part of what you're saying and what I'm hearing is that sometimes because of the fear that we have, sometimes we try to bury it or pretend it doesn't exist.
Right.
And that's really the wrong thing to do. I don't think that's what you did, but I do feel like that is a part of what keeps people from having this conversation, right? And one of the reasons I wanted to have it, because we're in this pandemic right now where these kids are at home and they're not out there being the kids that they are here to be, to learn and explore and to interact with each other and learn from each other. And it's causing this whole dynamic in our society that we need to be aware of. And for anybody to think that their kid is exempt from that would be just foolishness, especially in our world when we see all that's going on right now and the energy that's going on right now. It's really important that we have communications and open these dialogues that need to be had.
I think it's very natural to want to hide from all that. It's also a very strong impulse to want to reset to normal. So when Sam first attempted, it's a really strong impulse to say, oh, that was the one-off that he said it was. Because you crave to go back to that time. But that's not what I did. I took action. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it is people don't want to face it. I mean, as a, I can't imagine. People would say to me, a lot of times, I can't imagine, or I can only imagine. I'd be like, which is it? Can you imagine? But I think if we are all true to ourselves, you can feel what this feels like.
Absolutely. It's very much to feel what that feels like. It really doesn't, because our kids are at any age. I mean, I have adult kids that have teenagers, and I still worry about all aspects of their life. It never goes away as a parent.
Right.
And we worry all the time about all aspects of their being here because they're important to us. And I think for me, the thing about your book that is really incredible is that dialogue that you have back and forth as you go through those letters and see that basically that transition that he was going through in a mental mind and being able to answer to that. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about what that was like for you to write your book in that format, because it was really an interesting format that you chose to write.
Yeah, it was very important to me to leave Sam's writing verbatim. I did not change a thing, a word, a punctuation mark, nothing. And he was a 20-year-old man. He cursed in some of the writing, but it was, that was still his voice. And I thought he had a very good writing voice. Part of the process, reading through them and then deciding to share it, it was scary, really scary. But I felt like if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to just put it all out there. I am not going to try to hide from it. This is real and it's raw. And he was a really good writer. But the format, the beginning of the book, we talk about we're looking for Sam, he's missing. And then we talk about more about his death. And then, but I really believe the chapters written by him can speak most strongly to teenagers and young 20s, I think. But I mean, my path, it was scary, but I felt like Sam came to me and wanted me to do this and encouraged me. And if I had left that out, I would not have been happy with the book and wouldn't have felt like it was complete.
It's encouraging. I'm trying to keep up with your guys' comments, but I'm focusing a lot on Nina right now. But they are really encouraging you and talking about how brave you have been through this. Because I think all of us here are women. All of us here, most of us are mothers. And we understand what that would feel like. We don't understand what that would feel like, but somewhat what that would feel like. So I feel like you're really inspiring people because even if it's not just this, it's whatever obstacle that we come across in our life that we have to keep moving forward through. And this is probably, I would say, one of the most difficult that you can go through. And to see that you've been able to do it and make something good out of it to encourage other people is just really important.
Yeah, Sam was studying biophysics because he dreamed of discovering cures and helping people and saving people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to say through this book, he's saving other people's lives. That's my most sincere hope. You save a life, you save a family. And that has always been the main goal, to get the word out there. And, you know, I mean, I understand how it can be, just really hard. I mean, really hard to find help and support, but it's out there. I mean, there are suicide support groups, and after Sam died, I participated in some survivor sessions at the Link. The Link is an organization started by Iris Bolton here in Atlanta, and everybody there had a story, and everybody there was heartbroken. Mm-hmm. And the part of the heartbreak is your dreams die for your child.
Yeah.
All those dreams, what he was going to be and do, and just, it's just horrible. I mean, there's no other word. Suicide is a horrible way to go. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say thing to do to the family, because Sam would not have done anything to us. That was not his intention. If he knew how much he was hurting us, he had hurt us, he would never have done it. So I just pray that people will reconsider suicide and that those numbers will come down.
I know that your book is going to help by having these conversations about remembering that what life is right now in this moment is not what it's going to be like 10 minutes from now or even a day from now. And that whatever situation that you're in, you can always find a way out, and you have to have trust on that. But I don't know how you get through to the people that just feel that kind of despair, but it's real to them. And that's something that we really need to make very known and talk about, because your son's not the only one that has felt that way. And if we can save more and more people, especially children who don't understand that, especially with kids, because I mean, even at 20, they're still in that frame of mind where they don't have that balance and that forethought and the thinking of things will be better tomorrow. Everything is a lot bigger when you're young, and you don't have that balance and wisdom that we just so lovely create as we go through our challenges. Bumps in the road. And I don't know if there's more programs that we can do to get this out, because it's really growing right now, and it's something that we need to do. What would you say? That's a good thing. What would you think, or what would you say that Sam would say to people to help with their loved ones, or to help somebody that they know who may be struggling with suicide?
I think he would say, life's a lot better than what you're saying here right now. He had, this is in the book where he said, he wrote this, he said, I got to be honest with myself. I haven't done that badly at life. I've got people who support me and love me. I'm at a great school studying a great subject. So that, from there, you can go the next day feeling like you're worthless. And then you flip-flop, and that's okay, because scientists say until age 26, the frontal lobe has not, completely formed, and that's how you process consequences. So they're not really processing the consequences of what they leave behind. And I just think, he would say, talk to a friend, find somebody to talk to. Be open about it. Don't hide what you feel. There's no shame in it. There's no shame. And you're right. I mean, it's only getting worse with the pandemic. Things are really dire, or people see them as dire. But you just have to hope for the future. And hope is a big thing. That was a big theme in my book because I write about when it was a few months after Sam died, and I had to take my daughter to high school for a meeting. It was before school started. And I was missing him so much. And I had heard about the heart linking technique of, putting your hand over your heart and talking. So I'm stopped at a red light, and I'm saying, Sam, I cannot go on. I cannot do this. This is too hard. I know you want me to be strong for your sister. I cannot do it. I'm just pouring tears. Across the intersection, a truck pulling a trailer turns left in front of me, and across the trailer, it said, "There's hope." I had never seen a trailer like that before. I haven't seen one since. I believe that was him. And so the word hope is just integral to the message I want to get across. There is hope. And without hope, we have nothing. But, it was kind of a really cool thing when it happened.
Well, I think that's important. And I know that you've had other signs as well, because the spiritual world will show us signs that they're around. They'll do things that are specific to them too. It's not like they're sending feathers down from the sky and that's just a sign. It's specific to whatever you're either going through or whatever is important or pertinent to them, which is, we can't doubt those things.
No, I know you like birds, and a constant companion for me has been a cardinal, male cardinal. I've had just, when I'm at the most bleak state, the red cardinal will appear. I had one come in my house and have no idea how it got there. It flew to the second floor window.
I know how it got there.
I know it got there. Yeah. And I was alone in the house.
Yeah.
And we have a cat. So I had to get the cat into the basement, get the dog into the basement. And I called my husband. He said, hold a broom up to it, see if it'll light on your light out there. And I was just shaking. I couldn't do it. Maggie came home and she took the broom from me, and the bird did light. And then we took it outside. It was unharmed, but it left me some feathers on my counter. And I have, it was another miracle to me. It was another sign because there was no door open. There was no way that, that bird had come in, but it was a really cool.
I've had that one time where we had the door open, but this bird came in the house, flew around. I don't know, was in here for maybe 10 minutes and then flew out the window. It was like, well, that was fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there's a meaning to that, because a bird is not going to fly into somebody's house randomly. That's not one of the cases.
Right, exactly.
That story. And yes, I do love birds. Birds are a great sign of there's more to life than we actually know. By listening to them and watching them, I love, like, when you're really down and depressed and you feel like you can't go on, go out and watch the birds play. They don't have to worry about what's coming next or if the bill's going to get, and I know that they're different. I get that, but think about it. They don't have the mindset that we have to be able to say A, B, and C. They're just every day living on complete trust and faith that everything is going to be okay for that entire day.
Right. Yeah.
And they play and they have fun and they frolic and I love watching birds.
Yeah, I do too. And I just feel like you can feel a spirit in nature. I always do. I love to be out in nature. And I've become a big bird watcher since Sam died, because I do believe. Another story, I read Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch. It's a novel when Sam was still alive. And I wanted him to read it because it's like a coming of age story for a young man. So he read it. And months after, he's like, Mom, do you know my favorite book? And I said, The Catcher in the Rye, because that had always been his favorite book. He's like, no, The Goldfinch. I was like, really? It was really cool to me because I had recommended it.
Yeah.
So after he died, my husband and I went North Georgia to Yona Mountain. We were starting our hike, and this bright yellow bird appears right at the base of the mountain. It was a yellow goldfinch, and it's rare to see one by himself, and it's rare for them not to be around, a feeder or something. And so that bird just sat there and looked at us. I was like, I think that was on Sam's birthday too, on one of his birthdays. And so that birthday plus the goldfinch, I'm on the lookout for goldfinches too.
I love it. I love that. That's cool. How are you doing through all this, and how did you help them through the process of the guilt and the loss and the sadness?
I think they're doing well. My one daughter is still in therapy, and she has a really good therapist that she works with. And my girls are very different. The younger one is very more emotional, empathetic. Maggie is more, business, taking care of stuff. So she kind of, I believe, busied away some of her grief. But the greatest surprise, she got a tattoo, and I didn't want her to get a tattoo, but she was over 18, so she did. And what she got was a triangle, and it said Sam, Maggie, Claire. So I was like, okay, she's processed, she still feels attached to him. She's doing okay. I mean, I was just really happy with that. I mean, to have your brother's name and your sister's name on your ankle was cool.
I know it's pretty common for people to do that too. Honor loved ones is to tattoo them. I mean, if you're going to get a tattoo, that's the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I got my first tattoo at age 50. So I was talking to a work colleague. I vaguely wanted to get a tattoo because Sam had gotten one, and I gave him a really hard time about it. And my friend said, "Oh, my cousin got her loved one's signature." I was like, "Oh my gosh." I had just that week found the last Mother's Day card that Sam had written to me. There was a cardinal on the cover.
Oh my God.
And inside he said, part of it was like, "Just know that I appreciate everything you do and have continued to do for me. Love, Sam." So I got his signature. Oh, wait, how do you do it? Oh, it's mirror there. Okay. There you go. So that's his signature, and it's really special to me to have it.
Yeah.
And when I look at it, I feel close to him, and I'm sure he was looking down, laughing at me. Forget me.
No, I'm sure he's not laughing at you. Sure, he gives you a hard time though. Do your daughters connect with him as well, like you do?
Claire does, yeah. She sat through, she had a medium session with her father, and there were a lot of things revealed. I know she dreams of him, but they're 20 and 18, and they don't necessarily tell me very much these days. So I know Claire has the connection. Maggie is more poo-pooed, the mediumship, and, she's very black and white and doesn't necessarily believe in an afterlife, but that's her path. She's got her own path, and it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we're all here to do, is follow our own path. And, we all have a reason to be here, and the path is going to be tailored to that reason. So
yeah,
that's what we're doing, is learning. Do you have any, can you show everybody your book? So
yes.
If you guys haven't gotten this book or read it, I have been reading this book. It's really, really good. And I think it's very helpful to see the parallels, the process that you go through in that book, and even your journey from processing this whole thing and then knowing Carol. She's just, the person to know. She's a very kind person and very helpful. Yeah, and then awesome. Just being able to process it through, whether you do mediumship or not, it's still one of the things that I like to tell people, whether you actually do it or not, because we all can do it. It's the most healing thing for you to do with, especially loved ones that have passed, where you may have anger towards or not understand something that had happened or whatever, even if it's bad. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to do it, even if you've had a bad experience, but it is very, very healing because you get to see that loved one in a pure form.
Yes.
And in a way where they're healed, and in a way that they are who they actually are, not what we are while we're here as a human being. And so just the process of that connection can be so healing.
Oh, it can be, for sure.
Yeah.
One medium told me, she said, I wish you could see him. He's like every gold and silver and just full of life. And he has angels, but they walk behind him. They're not supporting him. And so I'm excited to see him again, on the other side. But as far as my book, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, and I have a website, NinaOwen.com.
Oh, good. Do you do any community work, outreach, or anything when it comes to suicide prevention?
I'm trying, yeah. My main goal was to get the book done, and that took 3.5 years, and then to get it published, which was not that easy either. But that's what I want to do. I want to partner with the National Suicide Prevention, like American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I want, I'm not an expert on suicide or depression, but I'm an expert on my story. And I know what happened to us, and I know it can be helpful to others. And that is my goal. I mean, however this path leads me, I want to save a life. Even one life would be worth everything.
I feel like you have been doing that, because just by you being able to talk about it and being able to share the story and the process, that is healing, and it's going to touch people to be able to go on. Because like we said in the beginning, I don't know what is worse than losing a child.
Right.
You almost can deal with losing a mate or someone of your same age way better than you can a child. There's nothing worse than that. So I feel like just by you writing this book and by you talking about it and not being afraid to talk about it, that is healing of and by itself. And I know from the comments here that you've really inspired a lot of people. And, I had Susan here who's saying that she read your book, and and I know Carol is here. Hi, Carol. And hi, everybody else that's here. I'm not just picking out certain people, but I feel like, that's what this is about. It's about getting that message out and being able to honestly talk about your feelings and what you went through and how it affected you, and even to acknowledge the anger and the forgiveness, because there's no way you're not going to go through the anger and go through the forgiveness. So it's that being real and experience that you're going.
A lot of people tell me, the book is so raw, it's so real. I mean, I talk about, my anger, my despair. I'm very open about my feelings. And I also went through therapy and still see a psychiatrist. And I would never kill myself because of my daughters, but I can understand, like, those first days after Sam died, I didn't want to live. It was just too much to take. But like we were talking about before, wait a few days, things change. Your priorities will shift a little bit, and it's really important. And if I can get the word out to others, that's what, that's all.
I feel also the other message that you put out is having a strong team around you, having a lot of people around you, like you said, and I could pick up what you said. And I did a little rant today about how important having good friends around you is, but having those good friends around you, having those ones, you let go of the ones that don't help, but having the ones that will hear you and support you and a bit more listen to you and hear you. And that's what's really important too, because you're processing, and so are they. I mean, we're all processing through your experience right now, and it's supporting you in that, because now you have something really important to share with all those other people that have lost their children and how they process it. And some are going to do well at it and some people are not. And it's just, it's our process too, just like everybody else. And I really, every time there's certain ways that I feel from you is that just unconditional love that comes from you and the acceptance that you can have. And then just that horrible, reality. So it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And since my book, I've had 2 moms, maybe 3, reach out to me who lost their children. And one case was very similar, about the same age, smart boy, everything. And, just giving them a chance to tell their story, not making comparisons really, but, just being able to say, my son was a special, special person.
Right.
This is what he did. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I hope, even that, I hope I can offer support for the survivors and mothers, especially because as mothers, we have a bond with our kids that,
yeah.
Absolutely.
There is no closer bond than that one. No matter what a father's going to say, there's no closer bond than that one.
There is not.
I heard someone say that, and I don't know this to be true or not, but the belief system of the person I was listening to at the time, that because we carry our child within our womb, that after we have them, we always have a sense of that essence within us, which I believe to be true, because it doesn't really matter. And I don't mean this to say that we condone bad things that kids do, but almost no matter what our kids do, we always love them.
Oh, yeah. My husband and I, we told our children from the time they were little, there's nothing you can do to make us not love you. We will always love you.
Exactly.
And, but sometimes, unfortunately, love's not enough, I guess. But there is always that bond.
Yes. Well, I guess it goes back to, and it's hard for us to really understand it, but we all have free will.
Yes.
And, and we can't control somebody else's free will. There's just no way we can control that. And that's a part of what we're here for and a part of our lessons. It doesn't make it easy, but, I guess that's that fine line that you go through, right? With acceptance and guilt. It's just, we don't have the answer.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
And this life is short, we're not here that long. And I think the job we all have here is to better ourselves, to improve our souls. And my husband likes to tell me that I'm a young soul because I've had, whatever. I can be temperamental, things like that. So I feel like my soul had a lot to learn here. I wish it had not had to involve the death of my child. But I have really grown in my spirituality and in my hopefulness for the world in general.
Well, that's kind of really important, though. You kind of brushed across it, is that we're in the illusion and our soul is in the real world, right? And that's where we really are. And that's where we're always all together, even though it doesn't make what we experience on this earth okay or easy or, less important. But, we don't die. We don't die. We always are going on. So it's just kind of that assimilator of life that we're in right now, and have to ask ourselves often, what were we thinking?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it's my husband or I, we had a session early on with a medium, and we asked Sam, because he was a professed atheist, were you surprised to wake up in the afterlife? And he said, I was most surprised to see the expanse of it, because the afterlife is the whole universe. And so like you said, our souls continue. And that's the real. And here, this is not, but we can.
And what we're here is to honor each other and respect each other and help each other. If that's what we can do during this life, then we're doing well.
Yeah.
Because we need to have compassion. Like this morning, I went on a rant about what's happening in Texas, and it's really horrible. And we have a lot of compassion for that. And that's what we're here to do, is really care about each other when somebody's suffering and not diminish it just because we know. And when we do come into that knowledge of that we're really a soul and this is just this vehicle we're going through, it doesn't diminish the pain or the suffering that we go through. So we need to support each other and help each other. And if there's any way we can support you, because I know that this is going to be, it's a process that you go through, then we would love to do that as well, because you're doing really great work and you also need support at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you have any last words or golden nuggets you want to leave everybody with?
Golden nugget. Let me think. The biggest is, don't be ashamed of your pain. Mm-hmm. Share it. My psychologist said to me that people can make you sick, but people can make you well.
Yes.
And I believe people helped make me well. And I believe that's true of everyone that's out there. Mm-hmm. You may feel like you're alone, but when you really think about it, you've got your neighbor, or you've got your brother, or I hope everybody has somebody. And I know that's being a little Pollyanna, whatever. But I just talk, yeah. Be honest, and that makes everything better.
Yeah, that's a good. I think that's a good way to end.
Okay, good.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. I'm sorry I didn't engage with you more, but I really didn't want to. No. Yeah. But you guys were very supportive, and thank you so much for all of your encouraging words and your kindness. And go out and get that book. It's on Amazon for less than $4 on Kindle. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bargain.
We're not reading it now. So, well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. I really do appreciate it. And I've seen the sun is like really doing something weird over there.
Oh yeah, we saw the sun there. It's dark here.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I didn't get ready for this. Anyway, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Joanne. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you everybody for being here. And I'll go back over your comments. And if you have any other comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section. And if it's anything I need to get back to Nina, then I will. And thank you everybody. Please be safe and take care of yourself.